LEGO has made hundreds of LEGO Star Wars figures, including 25 versions of Obi-Wan, but have missed out on the opportunity to create thousands of other amazing figures from the Star Wars universe. So today we're going to be taking a look at 6 custom minifigures that LEGO never made. Before we get started, 2 quick things. First of all, I don't like 99% of any content that's come out under Disney while they've owned Star Wars. So if any of these characters have a background in both Star Wars Legends and the new canon, I'm going to be talking about them with their Star Wars Legends story rather than the canon story. Second, I just want to thank Engineerio for sending these figures over for review. If you're interested in purchasing any Engineerio custom minifigures, you can do so by clicking the link in the description below. Engineerio prints on official LEGO pieces where possible and then creates their own pieces when necessary. First off, we'll take a look at Shado Vao. Shado was a Twi'lek Jedi who was the apprentice to Cole Skywalker and a friend of Cade Skywalker in the Legacy comics. Shado was known to play a key role in many of Cade Skywalker's adventures, including being on the assault team that succeeded in killing Darth Krayt. Engineerio's version of Shado does have a 360-degree printed torso, but doesn't have a 360-degree printed legs or printing on the arms, which is a bit of a disappointment given the price point of the figure. The detailing on the torso and the legs is very accurate though to what we see Shado wearing in the comics. The printing is well done and very detailed. The reason I think the Twi'lek species is one of the hardest to create in LEGO is because of their leku. It's hard to get the shape right, and I think that Engineerio does a noble job of attempting it with a 3D printed piece. It is disappointing that we don't get any of the blue color printed onto his leku and that it's just straight black. I think that kind of does detract a little bit from the figure. Because the base 3D printed piece is black, the color of his skin is printed on along with his eyes and his mouth, so that kind of makes the mouth and eyes not pop off the figure as it would on a normal regular LEGO minifigure. The skin tone also doesn't exactly match up with the hand color either. There's a lot of detail put into this figure, and you can tell that Engineerio definitely put in a lot of work to make this figure look as accurate to the comics as possible. The one major area where they missed on detail was the printing on the leku, but they probably didn't do that along with 360-degree printing on the legs and printing on the arms to keep costs down. So overall, like I said, this is an excellent figure and a really well done rendition of Shado. Next up, we'll move on to my favorite figure of the lot, the Senate Guard. The Senate Guard were said to be as old as the Galactic Senate itself, making them one of the oldest functioning law enforcement agencies in the Star Wars galaxy. They wore their blue ceremonial robes to blend in with the formal setting of the Galactic Senate. They also served as a secondary police force to back up the Coruscant security force. I know you've got to be thinking, didn't LEGO make a version of the Senate Guard? Yes, they did. They made the Senate Commandos, but not all Senate Guards are commandos. All Senate Commandos are Senate Guards though. It's like how not all rectangles are squares, but all squares are rectangles. And even though LEGO has made the Senate Commando minifigure, they have never made the ceremonial version of the Senate Guard, so I'm counting this as a distinct custom figure that LEGO has never made. To start, we get a custom blaster, a custom helmet, and custom robes, which are all really high quality. If you take off the robes, you get the plate style armor as well, printed onto the torso, which is awesome. You would think that to save cost, the best way to make this figure would to be just create the robes and then print on the arms but not do anything to the torso, but that's not the case. You get the plated torso as well, so this is almost like a 2-in-1 version of the minifigure. The helmet does look rather silly on the figure without the robe though. Zooming in on the torso, I think that this is probably the most detailed torso out of all the torsos and probably the best printed as well, and I'm not just saying that because it's my favorite figure of the bunch. If you take a look, there's a lot of extra detail like the belt pouches and just the engraving on the belt buckle, and then the blend from the torso to the legs is pretty seamless. The torso is 360-degree printed, and there is printing on the arms for pauldrons, but the legs don't have 360-degree printing. So it comes with a head similar to some of those older stormtroopers where the face is printed onto a black head, and I think that causes it to not pop as well as it would if the printing was on a lighter colored head. The print detail isn't bad, it's just it doesn't pop off of the head, which is a little unfortunate. But let's be honest, you're probably just going to have the helmet on the whole time because the helmet with the robes looks really sick. So I don't think it's a huge deal that the print detail isn't popping off of this face. The printing on the robe is also well done. The only problem I have with the robe is that it doesn't match in color to the helmet. So it just doesn't blend super well when you're looking at the figure, but it's not super noticeable. And again, It's a robe piece in that like cloth material that Lego doesn't give us. And even if they did, they usually don't print on those types of pieces, so it wouldn't look as detailed as this printed robe. So you really can't complain about that. And this figure looks really awesome. It's my favorite figure, super accurate to what you see in the movies and the show. This is definitely a 10 out of 10 minifigure and one that I highly recommend that you add to your collection. The next figure we have is Jarek Yeager. And I'm going to be completely honest, I have never heard of this guy. As I've mentioned earlier, I am not a fan of Disney Star Wars, so I never watched the Resistance show, and that's where Jarek Yeager is from. According to Wikipedia, he was a human male mechanic who owned a repair shop on the Colossus during the era of the New Republic. I think of all the figures that Engineerio sent, that Jarek Yeager is the least accurate in terms of what we see in the show. And it's just because the hair is so drastically different from what we see in the show. Yeager doesn't come with any accessories, which is a little disappointing. It would have been nice for him to come with maybe a tool or two since he's a mechanic, but it just comes with the figure. I do like the face printing, and he does have a dual-sided face print, which is nice. The torso is also again 360 degree printed, and there is print on the one arm but not on the other arm. The legs have printing on the front but not on the back. Some parts of the torso printing are really fine and hard to see unless you're in excellent lighting, but the torso does very closely aligned to the images that I'm looking at for the show, so I think the torso is really detailed and really well done. This guy is completely obscure to me because I haven't watched any of the new Disney stuff. Is that just because I'm a curmudgeon who doesn't like the new Disney stuff? Is he a popular character? Let me know in the comments below if you have heard of Jarek Yeager. Although not completely accurate to what you see in the show, I really do like the figure, and I love the torso print actually. I think it's a really good torso to have in your collection, something that you can use in mocks just as a Rebel Alliance trooper or just some citizen of the Republic, depending on what you're doing. I think that the torso is really well done, and I'm a big fan of it. Speaking of obscure figures from animated Star Wars media, we'll move into our next minifigure, Tam Divo. Tam was a police inspector in the CSF during the Clone Wars. He appeared in 2 episodes of the 2008 Star Wars Clone Wars series, Sphere of Influence and Senate Murders. Tam Divo's figure from Engineerio is the only one of the 6 figures that doesn't have 360 degree printing on the torso and has no leg printing. He does have cuffs printed on his arms. I will say that the torso print that is there is super detailed. The belt buckle, the little sample tube, a belt pouch, and then the rest of the uniform all look great. It is a very crisp print. It does come with another custom printed face, and I actually think Engineerio nails this one. I think this looks really accurate to what we see Tam Divo look like in the Clone Wars show. I'm not the biggest fan of the hairpiece that they chose. I think there might be better options that more closely resemble what he looks like in the show, but it's not the worst, and he still does resemble what he looks like in the show. I would have used short legs though because he's a short character, so that is another missed opportunity. Even though the printed torso is really awesome and really detailed, and I love the cuff print on the arms, this is probably the figure I'd be least likely to recommend out of these 6 figures, just because it doesn't have any leg printing or torso printing on the back. Don't get me wrong though, it's still really high quality custom, and if you're looking to make a mock based on either of those 2 episodes from the Clone Wars, or if you're just a big Tam Divo fan and want to create your own stories with him, this is a great rendition of Tam Divo to purchase. Next up is a really obscure minifigure from Star Wars history. This is CZ3. CZ3 briefly appears in A New Hope when wandering past Luke and Obi-Wan as they're walking through Mos Eisley. CZ3 was featured in one short story in Star Wars Legends in which Jabba the Hutt used him as bait to expose one of his rivals. One fun fact is that CZ3 is partially derived from early concept drawings of Darth Vader, so this is what one of the most feared villains in Star Wars could have looked like. The CZ3 figure by Engineerio does have 360 degree torso printing and arm printing, but does lack any printing on the legs other than the front. The printing that is there though is super intricate and captures a lot of the detail of CZ3. The one thing I would say though is that I think that this figure could have been better served by having a custom molded head instead of a standard Lego head, because CZ3 has a lot of depth to his face that I don't feel like is adequately captured in just a Lego head. So I do think that he could have done with a custom molded head, but that is just a minor detail that would have made the figure cost more. So if you're in the market to acquire every single Star Wars Lego minifigure that's ever appeared in the books, shows, or any other type of material, CZ3 is definitely the figure for you. And if you want to make a Mos Eisley mock, he's a really lore accurate character to add to the mock. Last but not least, we have Jedi Master Depa Billaba. Depa Billaba was a Chalactan Jedi and former apprentice to Jedi Master Mace Windu. Billaba was also one of the only 3 practitioners that mastered the lightsaber form Vapad. Out of all these figures, Billaba has the greatest difference between her canon and legend stories. In canon, she's mastered a Jedi Padawan Kanan Jarrus. In legend, she falls to the dark side and ends up in a coma, and her fate is undetermined. After she turned to the dark side and entered into a coma, Obi-Wan Kenobi replaced her on the Jedi Council. Regardless of which version you hold true, Billaba is still a very important minifigure to own, as she was a member of the Jedi Council. Billaba's figure does have really detailed robe printing on the legs and front and back of the torso. She doesn't have any arm printing or printing on the back of her legs. She also has a custom printed face that I think out of all the figures that we've looked at today is the best by far. It's super accurate to what we see in the movies and the show. I think that this is a near perfect minifigure. I really love this figure. I think that it just looks awesome. The robe printing details, the face, it's just really well done. The two things that I'm upset about, I wish that it had arm printing and I wish that it had a cape. 360-degree leg printing, I understand why you wouldn't do that. Like, I guess the back of the leg is probably the least looked at part of the figure, but it would really be nice to have printing on the arms. I think it would add a next level of detail that is just kind of missing when the arms are blank. And I think it's a huge miss for any brand, Lego, custom Lego, fake Lego, to not include capes or robes with their Jedi minifigures. Especially in this case because Depa Billaba is printed in robes, so adding the cape would have just been the final touch for me. That would have just made this a perfect figure. It doesn't have to be printed like the robe was for the Senate Guard, but just adding that cape, I think, man, takes it to the next level. Regardless though, this is a great figure. If you're trying to collect the OG prequel Jedi Council, this is a great version of Depa Billaba to add to your Lego collection. So my final thoughts on custom Engineerio minifigures, I think that all these figures are amazing and pretty accurate to their source material. There are some minor discrepancies, but it is really hard to be absolutely perfect when creating custom minifigures. For me, I just love that these are 6 unique minifigures that we've never seen before from Lego. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I love Star Wars Legends, so getting a character like Shado is really awesome, and Engineerio has a lot of Star Wars Legends minifigures on their website. There are a lot of options for custom minifigures out there, but I think Engineerio does a great job of giving us a lot of an assortment of characters that we've never seen before, instead of doing duplicates and repeats or trying to improve on Lego's versions of things. All the printing was really well done and super high quality too. The only area where I could really see room for improvement was when they're printing on the black heads, because the print doesn't really pop off of the black head as well. So that is one area for improvement. And one of the big selling points for me is the accuracy of the face prints. Like Depa Billaba and Tam Divo have really awesome accurate face prints that I think just give a lot of detail and life to the character. Once again, thanks to Engineerio for sending these figures over for review. If you're interested in purchasing an Engineerio figure, you can do so at the link in the description below. Let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of the Engineerio figures and how they stack up to other customs in the market. There are a lot of other custom Star Wars minifigure companies that you could buy from, like Clone Army Customs or Minifigures for You. But I think the awesome thing about Engineerio is that they give us a wide variety of characters, not just new variants of characters that we've already seen before. If you guys want to do me a huge favor, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss when I drop new content. Hit the like button on this video and then leave a comment and let me know what your favorite part of these figures were. Thanks for watching as always. I appreciate you guys and I'll catch you next week.